Every morning, there's something I look forward to. I go to shul and I daven, which of course is wonderful that we can do that. Obviously, it's something that I don't take for granted. The fact that a month or so of the year I couldn't go to shul, and of course we know over the first lockdown for months we couldn't go to shul. So that in itself is a wonderful thing. But then when I leave shul and I enter outside, I take my mask off. And every morning, that feeling of removing the mask, which I've had on for close to an hour in shul, it's a wonderful feeling. I breathe in the fresh air. It's good. And it struck me yesterday on Yom Ha'atzmaut, when I did that, I realized this is very similar, I think, to the Jewish people's experience. Because our journey as a nation, since Avram Avinu, or since the dawn of time, has gone through stages. I would say the first stage was that whole journey of the Torah, of Avram, Yitzhak, Yaakov, going into Mitzrayim, coming out, the wilderness, and finally under Yehoshua coming in to the land of Israel. End of stage one. And obviously the next stage was in Israel, when we had the judges and the Malachim and the kings and everything, and we built Beit Rishon, exiled, built Beit Sheni. That was the period of time that was Israel. Those first two periods was building up to it and then having it. In essence, that's what it should be. That was the zenith of our existence. Yes, it wasn't Yemot Mashiach, but certainly we had a nation home, we had the Torah, we had a whole way of life that was bursting with sort of Yiddishkeit and so on and so forth. That was what life was like. And then we left, and then we were exiled. And then we wanted the globe. That was the third stage. And that's when the masks went on. That's when we felt a sense of fear, a sense of trepidation, not knowing what's going to happen to our nation. But then came the day when we were allowed to take off the mask, or begin to take off the mask. And that was Yom Ha'atzmaut. That was a day, the remarkable day, when after 2,000 years we once again were a free nation in our own land. And it's still a wonder that we have on this day of Yom Ha'atzmaut such difference of opinion. There isn't a unity like on other Chagim. And I find it strange. I find it strange that we can't altogether realize, both on the secular and on the religious side, the miracle of what has happened to our nation. Now, I would say as well that I fully understand when I take off my mask when I go outside. I understand that we're not there yet. COVID hasn't gone. We haven't yet reached a stage where we can return to complete normality. Similarly, I fully understand that taking off the mask in Jewish history, the Achalta de Geula, the beginning of our redemption, the beginning of breathing and living normally again as a Jewish people. But we're not there yet. It's not the Geula Shalema. We have to realize that. And this week, it's Metzora, Tazria-Metzora. The Sidrot dealing, of course, with quarantines, as everyone points out, in terms of last year and still a year later, we're still dealing with the same concept. But what's fascinating about Metzora, Tazria-Metzora, is it's not a contagious disease. Yes, it's true, you have to quarantine. You therefore think it's a contagious disease. That's why we're quarantining. But the Gemara explains that a Kohen can delay the pronouncement of the nega, pronouncement of the tzurat, which means there'll be no quarantine, because, for example, they give a case of a chatan in his week of Sheva Brachot. The Kohen wants to be able to finish his week before he goes into quarantine, which means, therefore, if it was a health hazard, of course he'd have to go straight away into quarantine. But it wasn't a health hazard physically. It was for the person. It was a message to the person to say to them, you have to self-examine yourself. You have to realize what you've been doing wrong in terms of your personal relationships, in terms of your lashon hara, in terms of your evil speech or withholding good speech. Whatever it is, you've got to look at yourself. But it wasn't a health hazard. It was about taking personal responsibility, recognizing that, you know what, I've got to change. And so much of our society, that would really be a wonderful way to go. If we realized that COVID wasn't simply a health hazard, which of course it is, but also for us to think to ourselves as a community, as a world, what have we done wrong? And going back to the Yom Ha'atzmaut situation, it behooves all of us in the Jewish world to think to ourselves, let's look at this. Let's look at this situation. What has Hashem given us? As I said in Hasmini yesterday, both to the boys and the girls' school, and wonderful, wonderful experiences with them. I said to them, when we say in Hallel, Zeh Hayom Asah Hashem Nagila B'Nismachava, we have to understand it's not simply a day of barbecues and a day of celebration and of, all the things we love about Israel, the country. It's also a realization that this is part of Jewish history. This is part of our journey. And it's a journey that has taken us through the ups and downs, through Yom HaShoah and Yom HaZikaron, but it led eventually to Yom Ha'atzmaut, a day when we celebrate, yes, but we recognize we are part of this incredible story. And yes, we take off our mask and we begin to breathe as a normal state once again, with pride and with incredible abilities to be a Kiddush Hashem and to be all a Goyim, yes, all of that. But a realization that even though the mask is off, and we understand that, we understand as well there is still a journey to go, to bring the Jewish people together, to bring them united to Torah, united to religious Zionism, united to understanding of what we should be as a nation. That journey is still not finished, but certainly on Yom Ha'atzmaut we can celebrate how far we have come. Wishing all of you for yesterday, Chag Ha'atzmaut Sameach, and of course for today is Shabbat Shalom, which of course is Yom Ha'atzmaut. It is the 5th of Iyar. It is the 20th day of the Omer. We just pushed it back. So this Shabbat is a special Shabbat because it's not only Shabbat, it's also the actual day that Hashem brought us back 73 years ago. Shabbat Shalom.